Thursday night football is in the air. It's an AFC North battle with the Bengals and the Ravens going head-to-head tonight. You know you got to find some advantages on the DraftKings Showdown slate, and we're going to try to do that today here by building some elite lineups. So we're going to do it three different ways. I'm going to hand build the lineup first off. They're going to optimize lineups after looking at projections and ownership projections from Stochastic. Last but not least, we're going to simulate some lineups with the goal of finding out who are the best plays on the slate and how to get unique amongst it all. So let's get into it. Start off right here. Of course, this game today, 21.3 implied points for Cincinnati, 24.8 implied points for Baltimore. A game where it does feel like there is a market advantage on the Baltimore side in a lot of different ways. So that is going to be something that I want to harp on throughout the course of this one. And I got to tell you guys, after the Monday Night Football bad luck festival that was the Bills in that one, I'm kind of tempted to change things up a little bit. You might see the new headline on there. You might see bigger faces on the thumbnail. So I did do that on Monday too. I'm actually going to do one thing though that I know is going to harken back for all the people who followed me from the Stochastic days. I'm actually going to put on the godforsaken money hat today. It's a money hat day because you know what we need to do, guys? We need to change the juju around. I feel like there's been a lot of good takes recently on the showdowns and Monday too. Talk about it on these videos, of course, throughout the course of the week. Josh Allen, didn't play as poorly as I think people want to make it sound like he played. A couple bad picks in that game for sure, but also a lot of bad luck in that one. Passes bouncing off hands, all of that. I still think that was a game where he should have put it down big on the Broncos. That said, I ain't putting out a thumbnail where it's like best game of 2023 and the guy sucks, because I think for the most part, we've had a lot of success in these showdown videos. So I'm changing the juju around. We got the money hat going. I'm wearing a shirt with my son's face adorned on it in Taylor Swift style. You can see it here. It's Luca's version, guys. Luca's version of Taylor Swift. I don't know, man. We're doing it different today. So we're going to make it work. And the first thing that's going to make it work, I'd like to believe in this build, it's going to be Mr. Mark Andrews. Mark Andrews, a guy, you're going to hear a lot about Zay Flowers today. Zay Flowers should be a guy that benefits in the situation on the year. The Bengals, I think number 2 in the league in explosive plays allowed in the pass game, about a 10% explosive pass play rate. But Mark Andrews, a guy who is explosive from time to time as well, has not been getting there in the box score lately. You can see 6.4 points last time, 17 points a game before that. So pretty reliable besides that last game. Andrews priced in this matchup at 8,800. I think he's a strong captain play to go to. Obviously, have not dug in deeply on the ownership yet. We'll do that in the moment with Stochastic. But I feel like for Andrews in this matchup, and it's something too, where to be totally candid, I'm worried about Andrews becoming a little bit too much of a public play because I see it on Twitter already this morning. A couple people, I'm not going to shout it out here. I'm not, I'm a mean person, but I'm not that mean. A couple people I don't think are that sharp. We're talking about Mark Andrews anytime touchdowns today on Twitter, and I was like, oh, fuck. But I do believe that Mark Andrews in this spot is a good play. I also, for some reason, have the wrong background up. So hold on, let's switch to the new one. Yeah, there we go. Big splash by logo. So Mark Andrews in this situation, going to benefit from a matchup against Cincinnati defense on the year. Now the worst in the league defending tight ends, 0.73 EPA per target allowed. So they're basically giving up, of course, EPA, a metric that I pull from Sports Info Solutions, a great site. If you want to get some advanced analytics in your life and see how players do in these different scenarios. But basically, the Bengals are now one of the worst tight end defenses in the league, basically right up there with the Cowboys, who are a team that we've targeted in the past and had a lot of success with. Of course, George Kittle breaking out on a showdown a couple weeks ago, or about a month ago now, I suppose. Point being, though, it's a good situation for Andrews on the year. Andrews is getting targeted a decent amount out of the slot as well, so maybe not perfect in terms of that tight end matchup, but he is getting targeted 18 times on the year out of the tight end position naturally. Out of the slot, he's getting targeted 41 times. But again, as we talked about in the past, a tight end weakness can be a similar thing to a slot weakness because you are defended by similar players. You are defended in similar areas of the field. But I think Andrews is going to be under-owned today. We'll find out when we get to the ownership projections in a moment. But Andrews is going to be my captain, and that is going to be the first thing I do here. Clad in my money hat, full confidence and bolden right now, and Mark Andrews, and I can't wait for him to ruin that one. What happened to Isaiah Unlikely? He's been good on the year. He's just not getting snaps and reps. 18 snaps per game, 6.4 routes per game. So Likely, though, actually technically a little bit better in EPA per target on the year than Andrews. Andrews 0.45 EPA per target, which means he's basically adding about half a point every time that he is targeted. And Isaiah Likely 0.54. So a little bit better than Andrews technically, but obviously smaller sample size stuff is how that goes. Lucas shirt equals an AR jersey. Can't lose tonight. I hope so. I hope so. He's a fucking cute kid, and really enjoyed seeing his face on his shirt. Money hat is on. It's getting serious. It is getting serious. It's that time of year, guys. I played NBA last night. had some really good lineups despite fucking Josh Green. I don't know if you guys are playing NBA, but it is stochastic stream. And if I'm prepping NBA for a day, I play NBA too. And I'll be doing the same thing today on the deeper dive. But it's a day where I'm doing both sports, and I need the money hat today to make the money last as you are playing both sports. Who else can we pair with Mark Andrews here? So one report floating around out there. I'm going to pull the guy up. I'm not committing yet to putting him in this lineup, but Keaton Mitchell is a guy that is really been busting everything. Like, he has been an outlandish player with how he's played so far. He is also priced up to the gills here. You could see a $5,600 salary on him for Keaton Mitchell. I don't think that people are going to want to play Keaton Mitchell tonight. That's going to be my thesis here. He does not have a great projection from Stochastic, a 6.2 fantasy point projection, but there were quotes in the press conference after the game from John Harbaugh talking about how he did want to see a little bit more usage for Keaton Mitchell because they basically got away from him in the second half after he had such a gangbusters first half. And we all love Devon Achane here. Of course, one of the biggest best ball bags out there in the world for a lot of people, myself included. But for Keaton Mitchell, he's technically been better than Devon Achane in a limited sample size. He's currently averaging, and this is not something that can hold up because it is otherworldly, 0.88 EPA per rush, which, as we talk about a lot here, for rushing plays, they're inherently less effective, inherently less efficient. They're not creating value because you're getting 3-4 yards. Sometimes you're going to break a big one, but for the most part, you're going to run into the line and do the best you can with it. For Keaton Mitchell to have that much explosiveness and have that much upside, and it's not like it's out of nowhere either. It's not like these are just perfectly blocked plays. He's also averaging a 75% avoided tackle rate. He's getting targeted as well, 50% of the time when he's running a route. So when you hear them talk about, we didn't do the right thing by not giving him the ball in the second half, I think this is a matchup where you do expect him to do that. He's also going up against a Bengals team stuffing the run at a league low 13% rate, avoiding tackles on their end. They're missing tackles at a 22% rate. So there's a lot of things that could be going well for Keaton Mitchell here. I do think the price tag makes it tough, but I am actually going to play Keaton Mitchell. And quite frankly, I think you could play Mitchell with Gus Edwards, and it wouldn't be the craziest thing on this slate because I kind of think the Ravens put it down hard to the Bengals, but we will see what happens today. Again, shouts to the chat here. Let's see. Got a work meeting at 11:15. It's going to listen to Splash Play instead of listen to me talk. I appreciate that, Justin. Look, I would say if ever you can, just don't go to work meetings and just watch Splash Play. That's the only thing I would ever ask of you guys. Other things that we can go to in this build. Obviously, the expectation would be Lamar in this build, I would think. Cincinnati on the year not doing much against QB rushes, 0.22 EPA per QB rush, which is basically league average. QB rush is inherently a little more efficient as well than a normal rush play, but Cincinnati is just not good defending the run overall. So I think Lamar has to be in this lineup. We do have obviously a player at captain who is a pass catcher. So when Lamar gets into a lineup with Andrews, we are getting a little bit chalkier as a result. So we're going to have to find a way to get unique in this build. I'm hoping that Keaton Mitchell is it, but we'll find out as we get through the rest of this one. Other players that we can put in, we have seen Trent Irwin have the big, relatively big day last week, had the one touchdown to start that went off, kind of came down a little bit after that, but still 4 for 54, or 2 for 54 rather, 4 targets in that game, 13.4 fantasy points. In this matchup, he is at 4,400, so that price tag has come up. I don't know if I love that. Tyler Boyd, another guy you could potentially go to here. Boyd had a really big game, 8 catches, 117 yards in that last one with no T. Higgins. Of course, T. Higgins expected to be out once again with that lingering issue that he has. I believe it's a hamstring he's got going on. So for T, unfortunately, not going to get out there, though. Frankly, it's not the matchup to really expect big things to happen anyway. But in this spot, Boyd, 6,800. I don't know that I want to pay that price either. Bengals offense good enough to move the ball, you would think. So I kind of think the first guy I want to put in is actually going to be their kicker, Evan McPherson. McPherson, we know, has pretty good range. Had a long of 50 last week. Has had longs of 56, 52, 54. So if he gets it just close enough and the Bengals don't completely give up the game to the Ravens, I think we see McPherson have a good day today. So he is going to be my Bengals representation. And I'm kind of thinking Baltimore onslaught. I don't know that 5-1 builds are going to be the most popular because of the fact that it is only a 3.5 point spread. Again, 24.8 implied points for the Ravens, 21.3 implied points for the Bengals in this spot. But I think McPherson is a guy where I just expect him to run into a lot of issues. Baltimore's defense in the red zone, negative 0.15 EPA per red zone rush, negative 0.6 EPA per red zone pass. They're shutting things down when you get there. The hope would be that basically if the Ravens are close enough to the Bengals, they're going to kick a lot of field goals. If the Ravens pull really ahead, then you're going to see them go for it more on fourth down, obviously. But I think McPherson's a strong play, and the Bengals kicker is an Emacs. So, of course, we do love Emacs here as well. My old pal from Stochastic, who is actually does their accounting as well, so he pays me. He pays me when I do Stochastic shows. All right. Who else can we go to here that we do like and feel good about? Are there enough touchdowns to go around to get Gus Edwards in here too? Because Gus Edwards, can just walk into the end zone from the 1 yard line. I think that is something we've seen enough times. Keaton Mitchell, more the big play guy. He's probably not going to get you the goal line work. For Keaton Mitchell to pay off this price tag, he has to break big touchdowns. So maybe it is not the smartest actually to put Edwards in. I'm just thinking about the game logistics of this all, because I do expect this to be, I don't want to say expect. I do believe it's going to be closer to a Ravens beatdown. But obviously the Vegas total does say it's a competitive game. Let's see if we can maybe double kicker. Ravens D, not a bad play. Ravens D, let's see. They're getting pressure at a 20% rate. Not a lot of QB hurries. They're getting a lot of picks. Kind of feels like they're a little bit lucky with the picks. Deflecting a lot of passes, though, deep. 17% pass deflection rate deep would be one of the best marks in the league. So if Joe Burrow tries it deep and a pass deflection for what it's worth, like a pass deflection, think about how that works. Your hand is near the ball. Easier to get a pick than it is going to be if a team isn't deflecting passes at all. That's something that does tend to be a little bit stickier over the course of time. That deflections turn to picks. Keep that in mind if you are tracking any deflection stats. Man, I think we can now leave enough money on the table and go Gus with this build. I mean, we're just saying the Bengals, who have had kind of a cursed year, Jamar Chase banged up. I mean, Jamar Chase obviously be the obvious play to put in here. You'd be leaving $800 on the table. I don't think this build would be unique enough. If we do go to Jamar Chase, we could also drop the points down. So like, you're not going to Chase. Could go to Mixon. Mixon, one thing going for him, the Bengals on the year, the Ravens on the year, 0.12 EPA per running back target allowed. So that's the one spot they're weak, because it's a negative EPA allowed out wide, negative 0.5 there, negative 0.33 EPA allowed to tight ends. They're not great against the slot, 0.15 EPA allowed there, which would be about league average. Let's put in Mixon. I think that way, at least we're not taking the chalk Jamar Chase here. We're playing something where Mixon just kind of getting the chunk yardage to get McPherson into range. Maybe a lot of checkdowns can do that. And I think we're still playing Ravens D, assuming that they get a takeaway on Joe Burrow to make this work. I think this is going to be my hand build, guys. Let's go with it. The money hat can't be wrong, right? Can't be. Let's do it. Yeah, you like Gus Bus? Well, fuck it. I went with Mixon. I think this build, I don't want to expect too many touchdowns. I think for this build, if you have Keaton Mitchell, putting Gus in there for this, at least a hand build and a single entry, I don't think makes the most sense. But I think for certainly a 150, I imagine there'll be some lineups tonight where I do have Keaton Mitchell and Gus together. Keaton Mitchell, again, it's Achane Mostert. It is a very similar thing for what I'm seeing analytically from these guys. Obviously, Gus is not Mostert. Like, he doesn't catch passes. He doesn't do anything really useful besides those goal line touches. But he is a player that can get you multiple scores. And I think that's where there's a chance here on a showdown slate. That is one way to get unique. And frankly, I just don't think people are going to want to pay for Keaton Mitchell, but we'll see. Marlon Humphrey, doubtful. Okay, good to know. I don't care about cornerbacks, so Marlon Humphrey is a fairly good one. And he does a podcast with Jack Settleman, who I do like. So there we go. Projections on Stochastic. Let's look at them here. Top projected play is Lamar Jackson, number 1 overall. Jamar Chase, number 2 overall. Both these guys over 20. Nobody else in the game over 20. So you got to imagine an optimizer will force you to them to a certain amount, but we'll see in a moment. Joe Burrow, number 3 at 18.96. Joe Mixon, number 4. Big drop off to Joe Mixon. So I think that projection-wise, we certainly lost a lot of points with the lineup I just built. But I think relative to ownership, like, Mixon will be lower owned because he's just not going to be that highly projected. So I think that was a good call to go with Mixon there. I'll pat myself on the back. Zay Flowers, 13.03. And then Mark Andrews outside the top 5, which is why I do like him at captain. I think he's going to be a little bit underowned, a little under-projected. And this is a spot where, again, we saw the upside there. We know it's there for Mark Andrews. So in this matchup, it is a very good tight end matchup. Again, if you hear Mark Andrews talked about on ETR today, if you hear him talked about on Stochastic later today, if you hear him talked about whatever else, if Al Seidenfeld's talking about him, then maybe I'm a little bit wrong about the ownership. But I think with this projection at that salary, I just don't think we're going to see a ton of Mark Andrews going off, or people rather flocking to play him. All right. Top value plays. Josephus. I guess Josephus expected to get some snaps today. I thought he was out, but okay. So Josephus being back in, I think he's an interesting $200 play. Certainly a lever against Trenton Irwin. Josephus, a bigger bodied guy, a little bit faster guy. Not as good of a route runner though, so some risk point there. But Josephus is a guy that can get in there. And I guess, really just one touchdown is all you need from a $200. Travion Williams can get the long check down kind of plays. Third and longs, maybe gets in a little bit more. Mixon has been getting most of the pass game work most recently. Travion Williams, how many snaps did he play last game? Travion played 14 snaps last game. Mixon played 47. That's a pretty big gulf. But if you didn't play Mixon, I guess you could play a little more Travion. Okay, so I thought Andre was out. All right, so they have him in the projection. So Josephus, not a guy to go to here. Gus, 50% implied odds to score. Needs a TD to get there. All right. I mean, if that's the anytime TD market, I certainly do believe that's the thing you can sometimes follow with some, some trust, obviously. Doesn't always work out, but is definitely something that does show the likelihood here because betting markets are always things you should be following as sort of your North Star of how you're trying to build lines for the best possible thing. You think this is a game with less Lamar rushing or just neutral? I mean, it seems like a neutral matchup to me. Lamar running obviously just shy of 10 times a game. That's why we always have him fairly highly ranked in the Spags rankings. I think he's a good play to have in the flex if you're playing him at captain. And I think it's a contrarian play to play him at captain. If you're playing him with like a lot of pass catchers, I think that's certainly a build you can go to. We actually have seen that win with Lamar in the past where people will put Lamar at captain and not put his guys with him. If you're putting a QB at captain, even if he is a rusher, you do want to have his pass catchers with him, at least one or two. I would not put naked Lamar at captain and expect it to win. So I think it can be unique, to go that way. But Lamar expect to be kind of having an average rushing day, but it's Lamar. So you never really know. All it really takes is him finding space in one big run, and that could completely upset any idea of it being an average day. Let's take these projections, though, and we'll also look at the ownership projections right now. And, of course, these are going to get updated throughout the day, so don't just take them as gospel right now. But it is 11:15 a.m. right now on the East Coast. Lamar Jackson, top-owned guy right now, projected by Stochastic, 68%. Jamar Chase at number 2, 65%. Joe Burrow, number 3 at 61. All of these guys projected to be over 10% ownership at captain, but the highest is projected to be Jamar Chase. And we have seen Chase, of course, have big days without T. Higgins. This past game, though, kind of just had an average game besides the one long touchdown. So I still don't have an issue with Chase, obviously, but I do think that he's probably a little bit overowned in a matchup where we do see a very high total go in the Ravens. And frankly, the Bengals, kind of like the Bills, just not doing things the way they need to, and definitely not doing things as well as they did last year. Zay Flowers, number 4 owned guy, 40% for him, 8% at captain. It's a lot of Zay. I do think Zay is going to be a little bit higher owned at captain than Mark Andrews because he is a little bit cheaper, $7,600 compared to $8,800. People love Zay Flowers. I think people have been martingaling Zay Flowers a little bit, but the usage has been there. He's at like a 25% target share, 25% air yard share. So I think if Andrews doesn't get there, like Zay Flowers will, I think both those guys are strong plays today. I prefer Andrews, but I think it's a tournament. Like I'm going to play both absolutely tonight, and you guys should too. Like you have to be agnostic about the stuff as we talk about. It's a showdown. You can't really get married to all your player takes a little bit too much. Other guys in the top 5, or the last guy in the top 5, Joe Mixon, 39% projected ownership, 7.5 at captain. So Mixon, a good play to go to, I would think, in a build where you're fading the Ravens and trying to play the underdogs. I would say that Mixon would be the guy you go to at captain a little bit more there. But definitely a player that we know the flaws. He's not the most efficient. He needs the volume to get there. So for Mixon, for me, I prefer him in the flex, but I think there are some worlds where you can definitely build lineups to get him at captain. And again, to go with the thumbnail here, building unique lineups. The main thing to remember for all these is it's not about the players that are in there. It's not about getting the best plays in a showdown. It's about the most unique combo of lineups that you could build that actually have a good projection to them and a shot to actually win, whether that be the narrative part of it, whether it be the projection part of it. But that's the main thing that you're looking at when you're trying to build unique lineups. It's not about the players. So that's why a mix and captain build, like I could say that's a good play, even though I really do think the Ravens, on its face, the Ravens are going to put it down. And it's something that we talked about with Monday as well, where the most likely outcome doesn't always happen. Like the Bills scoring 40 in that game was the most likely outcome, if I'm being honest about it. Like they had a 27.5 point implied total going to the Broncos team that did nothing to stop what the Bills did. But you know what happened? Passes bounce around. Josh Allen gets inaccurate. That's how the game goes. They bench James Cook, and he comes back in, looks great, but he's not being used enough to actually have a meaningful impact on that game when it actually mattered. Those are things that you can't account for that sometimes will completely spoil a good matchup. So that's something for me that I need to remind myself of. You do have to play the contrarian outcomes as well as we go. Let's see what Fantasy Cruncher gives us. And shout out Sammy here. Great show. I love this fucking shit. If you love this show, please don't be afraid to go and hit that subscribe button. You can see the neon flashing GIF. We're about to look at the optimizer in a moment, but Splash Play marches on Monday to Friday at 11 a.m. And I will always do my best to give you guys the best takes. What I show you here is the same stuff I try to play. It's the way that I play. This is what my process looks like. Obviously, there's a lot of them out there. And even if you're just fading it, I appreciate you guys being here and joining on this journey. Let's see what we're going to get in this build. Let me upload the projections in here. And of course, when we run the optimizer, it's not meant to exactly mimic what the field is going to do. It is meant to tell us what the math is going to push people towards. So when you are playing with projections, which, what 80%, 90% of the field is, and then the other 10% are just building things on the toilet, you are getting pushed towards things with just the player projections, with the math, with how it all works together with salary. And sometimes it's not even players you want to get to. Yesterday, I mentioned, and played NBA, played Josh Green a ton because he just projected well enough and he allowed you to get to the guys that I like Julius Randle, some of the other guys that were higher dollar guys as well around him, Donovan Mitchell, like the Cavs. And that's sort of how that goes with projections, that you land on guys that you don't even think about. It's like, oh, this makes all the other guys work. And then ultimately, sometimes that doesn't work out that way. So that's why we look at this optimizer as part of the process. Top projected or top owned player here from Fantasy Cruncher, Jamar Chase, 84%. He's also coming up 16% at captain. So Jamar Chase in every lineup right away. That tells you that if you do just not play Jamar Chase, you're going to get away from a lot of the field because naturally the projection is going to push them towards him a little bit more. Does it mean Jamar Chase will be 100% owned? Nobody's ever 100% owned, but it does mean he's probably going to be a little bit higher owned than he should be just because it's easy to get there and people will feel comfortable putting in the best receiver on the underdog team. Other players, Nelson Aguilar making it in. All right, well, that's a bit of an odd one. Lamar, 32% in captain, 68% in the flex. So Lamar also in every lineup. So that's another thing you could do if you want to build unique lineups tonight. You could just separate out Jamar Chase and Lamar Jackson. That is something that led me to my biggest win last season. Again, I've mentioned it a few times on here, but separating out Joe Burrow and T. Higgins on a slate and playing only lineups that had one of them, that allowed me to get one that bubbled up out of only putting 20 entries in a showdown. That's something where, you really can make a big difference in your portfolio by just right from the jump saying, all right, I'm only playing one of these guys. And you're going to lose a lot with that, but you will also win more when you do win. And that's sort of the goal of showdowns and DFS in general. Aguilar is a price break. Aguilar priced at 800 in this one, and he does have a projection, so that's it. But you can see what the downside is here: 0, 0, 1.2. So that's how that goes. All right, other guys, anybody else coming up at 100%? Burrow, 60% in flex, almost coming up in every one. So Burrow, not quite at 100% with these projections, but pretty close to it. So I would lump him in with those three: Chase, Burrow, Lamar. If you really want to if you don't want to say, okay, I want to play one of Chase and Burrow and Lamar, you could probably just separate out Chase and Burrow. That's a way to get unique as well. But I think that is definitely something where obviously these guys are great players, but for a showdown, anything you could do to cut yourself away from portions of the field is going to be something that helps you out. So those are the three that definitely stand out as being in every lineup or pretty close to it. Trent Irwin coming up a little bit at captain. Evan McPherson coming up a little bit at captain is kind of interesting. So McPherson's coming up a lot. So McPherson is not going to be a sneaky play. The way that I played him in that build with just Joe Mixon will be a little bit more unique, and that's what we're talking about here. The overall construction of that hand-built lineup is unique because it didn't have Chase, didn't have Burrow, but because we have McPherson in, it is a chalkier build. But that's the kind of thing you need to think about all the time with DFS, where we were talking about it yesterday. I don't mean to keep mentioning NBA. We were talking about with NBA where it's like, it's about the overall construction of the lineup, where if you have one chalky guy and you have one less chalky guy, it evens out. Or even if you just have a player not in your lineup, that's also a way to change your construction from a lot of different other people. So that's the kind of thing to keep in mind when you are building stuff. But obviously, your mileage may vary. Defenses, Bengals, Ravens, both of them coming up not very much. And I should highlight too, Justin Tucker not coming up very much. So another way, when you see a projection play where a kicker's coming up a lot, you just flip it and go to Justin Tucker. So that's another thing you can do. Again, I feel like the lineup I built was unique with just the guys I didn't have in it. But if you were playing a lot of lineups, McPherson's going to be chalky and he's just coming up everywhere. And it's impossible to avoid him because he's a guy that makes all these lineups work. Just play Justin Tucker instead and find the money, whatever the case may be. But Tucker, we know the range is there. We know the upside's there and a higher point total for Baltimore. But obviously, if you're playing Justin Tucker, you should account for the fact there's less touchdowns. More Justin Tucker probably means less Mark Andrews, less Gus Edwards, less Keaton Mitchell. It just means that those big touchdown plays aren't there and Tucker's kicking field goals instead, which might be obvious, but sometimes you need to hear the obvious thing. Nothing else standing out too much in the player pool. You're getting some Odell, not too much. And Odell, quite frankly, has been more involved than one would think he should be. Only had 2 targets last week, though. Cleveland, we know, is a shutdown defense, so not that surprising. But against Seattle, 7 targets. Like, he has some upside. Going against the Bengals, they're not great out wide, 0.14 EPA, which is, again, basically league average at that position as well. But Odell getting enough work. He and Bateman, I think, clearly plays that are not as good as Zay Flowers, but you do get leverage on Zay Flowers if you do go to those guys. So that's the logic for him. I don't have a strong lean, but they're there, and I'll get them in some lineups, and I won't be too mad about it. The overall constructions, we are seeing some 5-1 Bengals, which again, this is what happened on Monday as well, where talked about the Broncos and how 5-1s were coming up a little bit too easy for the Broncos. What happens then? Broncos end up winning in that game, and it's a fucking 200-person chop. It's not where you want to be. So I think you're not going to get the payoff you want to get if you're playing the underdog today, much like that Broncos one on Monday. You play the Bengals underdog kind of builds, and that's certainly a good move to have in Showdown. But I would say that you do want to make sure that you're getting unique versions of that. So that means leaving a lot of money on the table. That means playing more unique Bengals. You could still build a Bengals build and try to target the underdog. But I think obvious underdog teams are going to be overrepresented. So you don't want to be that 200-person chop. Don't ever make lineups like that. I know it's still good to get a win, obviously, when you need a win. But I really think that's not the way to play Showdown. And obviously, you can do what you want. Some people just want to cash and just want to have a chop and feel good about that share of first place. I think the best thing to do is to try to build yourself a lineup that gives you a shot to take it all down, or at least take it down with like 5 people if you do finish in first. But, different play styles for different folks. Contest generator here on Stochastic. They actually have made some adjustments to this as well. So should be fun to play with it moving forward. This one, you can now change it. So if you're playing a high stakes tournament, you can move the slider there. The marquee one is the one that's going to be the one that we're looking at today. Of course, the big $15 tournament for the, the ones here that we do every single slate. We're going to generate the lineups in this one, but kudos to Stochastic. Again, they're doing the best they can to improve the Sims tool as they go. Obviously, Saber Sim, another great one out there. The Solver has a good one too. I haven't played with that one myself. Run the Sims has one. Choose one that works for you. I think that from my experience, I like the Stochastic one. I like the Saber Sim one. I think those both do a great job, and would personally co-sign for those, but the others I know people enjoy and like. Play 3 max tourneys, says Sammy. I think I like the Ravens D at captain. Coming off a game where they gave up over 30 points last week. Defensive captain's always pretty tough. I certainly am not going to begrudge you that. If it's one of your entries, I would not play him in all 3. But defensive captain, I was actually rereading an ETR article today, just kind of getting the mindset because I woke up a little bit early because the baby was just fucking screaming. So I was like, fuck it, I guess I'll get up and be productive. And read ETR's breakdown, basically, where they have a bunch of data on previous showdowns and what wins. And defense captain wins so much less than utilization that it's not a plus EV move normally to go there, but obviously your plays are your plays, so do what you got to do. In a 3 max, I certainly get it. All right, what was going on here? All right, we were already signed in. We'll do it again. Build these lineups one more time. Oh, no, not to wait. No, this is the wrong tournament. How dare they? How dare they do this to me? Embarrass me on stream. Here I am about to do content for them later today. You're making me look like a buffoon. All right. Here we go. Let's load it up again. And while I'm doing this one, guys, I'll do another plug. Please go check out probably.com. Again, the special deal goes on right now, and it's probably going to go on for a while for you guys because I care about the Splash people, and frankly, I need you motherfuckers to sign up. So go. If you have any money, go to probably.com/subscribe. These are not my picks on there. What we do is track the top probabilities from the winningest sportsbooks around the world to find the best legal sportsbook opportunities. We actually made some really nice data strides on the last day too, back testing some stuff. The win rate on there is about 60%, which I know fucking sucks because we got pummeled in the graphic I put out on Monday. But go to probably.com/subscribe. Use the promo code SPLASH. You'll get yourself up to a 50% off on any package on there, and that could be a year. So our yearly packages are going to be $500. 50% off, you're paying $250. So it's legitimately the best deal I could offer to try to get you guys in. So please go check it out at probably.com and use the promo code SPLASH at probably.com/subscribe and say 50%. Monthly ones too. You get one for $20 and it's a good deal on there. And then you'd be getting it for 10. So what a sweet deal by me, your pal Spags. Please check it out. Again, it's not my picks. It's what the math tells you. So I really think I would encourage you guys to check it out if you want to get in good bets. All right, we see a new screen here for the projection. So if you wanted to upload custom projections now, this is what it looks like. The percents of first, I believe, is 30% in this one. So let's do it that way. And let's run the simulation. But again, kudos to Stochastic making the improvements here. I saw it yesterday with the NBA sims, and then I guess they were already rolled it out to NFL. So kudos to them. Always glad to see people improving products. I know that now that it's so hard. All right. You talk about the difference between Probably and Odds Shopper. So Probably, basically, with Odds Shopper, they use their player projections to create ROIs and all of that. For Probably, we track like the winningest sportsbooks around the world, including a few international ones that are particularly strong. So we do that basically to define the probability for every bet in the world, and we evaluate the opportunities off it. But they are kind of the same similar concept where you use something as your North Star probability and you grade sportsbook opportunities off of that. So for them, obviously, the projections are great. For me, I personally believe in market data, and there's a lot of machine learning AI ones out there that claim to do a good job. I would be leery of those personally. Ours, I could tell you, like, it's the same thing as OddsJam, basically, that we do, but it's just mobile forward, and OddsJam is our data partner. So like, if you're familiar with OddsJam, those guys, like, a lot of people have made a lot of money off of that. And for us, I just wanted to democratize it and make it cheaper for you to get in. So I think it's worth your dollar. Obviously, if you think it's not, let me know. I mean, I'm right here for you, but we do the best we can to make it really something cool. So go to probably.com, probly.com/subscribe. And again, promo code SPLASH, 50% off. All right, let's look at the exposures here. We can look at the top lineup too before we look at exposures. Jamar Chase, Gus Edwards, Joe Burrow, Lamar Jackson, Nelson Aguilar, Ravens. So a pretty optimizery lineup here coming up number one, 49.7 in salary. Don't think this is that unique. These are the ones that I would normally try to cut away right away. Sometimes when I'm kind of running through the lineups at the end, I mean, I always do this now. I export them to Excel. I then have an Excel filter thing where I'll go through and I won't play ones that are this expensive unless they're like really unique. And this one, I just don't think is that unique. You have Burrow, you have Chase, you have Lamar. All the guys we talked about are going to be in every lineup. Aguilar maybe makes it a little bit more unique, but he's going to be a projection play based off stochastics data. So that means a lot of people will be playing him, probably more than they should. The Ravens D, again, pretty obvious in this build. I don't really love this one necessarily. Jamar Chase, Drew Sample, Gus Edwards, Joe Burrow, Mark Andrews, Tyler Boyd. That one a little bit more unique, but still 49.5. Really, these kind of builds with Chase at captain, he's a chalk captain. I think you got to get to like 49K and under would be my hope. Try to establish that. So this one getting closer. Jamar Chase, Devin Duvernay. So maybe a kick return touchdown. Evan McPherson, Joe Burrow, Lamar Jackson, Tyler Boyd. That one would be one I'd get closer to playing, even though Duvernay, is Duvernay even healthy? Is he supposed to be back? I thought he was on IR. Did Duvernay play? No, he was back last week. Played 4 snaps. That's a pretty narrow window to hit, given that he played 4 snaps last week. But that is the more unique kind of build that you want to get to. Overall exposures across the 150 set. We're seeing a lot of exposure going to Joe Burrow at the flex. No surprise there. A lot of exposure going to Evan McPherson, the flex. So good kicker play is Evan McPherson. The tournament play does become Justin Tucker then as a result. Joe Mixon coming up a good amount. Jamar Chase coming up a good amount. Nothing too surprising there. Top captains coming up. Lamar coming up the most at 31%. Let's look at some Lamar captain builds, actually. Let's see that. I do think this is an important one. And again, I really feel like if you're going to play Lamar at captain, that you need to get his pass catchers with them in at least, I would say at least 2, because I think 2 is the one where people are going to find it easy to get one Ravens pass catcher with Lamar, but they're going to go, that's enough. I think you want to cover it where like Lamar is like just a passing guy who's going to create value for 2 of his guys. And I think that's where I would try to target more so, but he is a rusher. So like you could certainly just play it straight, but I would try to win a tournament. I think the way to win a tournament is playing Lamar as though he's going to create value for 2 receivers. All right. Yeah. 50K. At least it does have 2 pass catchers in it, but this one, I can't imagine this would not be duped 100 times at least. So I would not play that one. Lamar Jackson, Duvernay will make it low round. So you could play this one at a higher salary. But Duvernay again played 4 snaps last week. So you're getting pretty tiny on that one. I like Sammy policing people here. So I appreciate it, Sammy. But yes, feel free to hit the like button, but it supports the creators. It supports me, helps me get seen by more people. So that's why we ask you guys to do that. Lamar, let's see. Lamar, McPherson, Mixon, Andrews, Odell. This one you could talk me into a little bit more. 48.4 salary. We are getting Andrews in instead of Zay Flowers. We're getting Odell, who nobody really wants to play. Even the casuals don't want to play Odell anymore. Lamar, Andrews, Aguilar, Zay. So a triple stack. Maybe not the players I want to play, but a triple stack does make sense. And then Tucker could punch in a field goal, and that would be the way that the running backs don't get there. So I think that is also a build that could work for Lamar at captain. Who else can we look at captain? That'd be interesting to look at. Let's go back to our exposures. See, Chase. We looked at Chase captain already. Zay Flowers captain. Is Andrews captain coming up at all? We'll look at Andrews captain because obviously that is my guy. Let's see if they built a better team than I did. I'm sure the sim did because that's what sims are meant to do. Mark Andrews captain. Andrews, Chase, Burrow, Ravens, Irwin, Boyd. That is definitely going to be duped. Don't fall for the 0 dupes on this one. If it feels like it's going to be duped a lot, there's a 50K salary. Just assume it's going to be duped a lot because they're only building 10,000 lineups. And it's not a good move to just kind of go with the only 0 dupe lineups. You have to really eye test it for yourself as well. This one may be playable at 49.8. Andrews, Gus Edwards, Jamar Chase, Lamar, Travion Williams, Zay Flowers. I think that has a little bit more to it than the other one, just because you are getting a low-owned Travion Williams in. I think it still might get duped a little bit, but definitely not as duped as that first one. Can we find like a really low salary one? 48K. This could be it. Andrews, Joe Mixon, Justin Tucker, Lamar, Ravens, Trent Irwin. So we're fading Jamar Chase. We're fading Joe Burrow. As we talked about, that's going to get you away from a lot of the field right away. You're also fading the running backs. You're getting away from all that. This is definitely the kind of build I can go to. We're just saying the touchdowns consolidate for Andrews. Joe Mixon, maybe he gets a touchdown. Maybe he doesn't. Maybe he just gets a lot of PPR points. And then Trent Irwin is your lever against Jamar Chase. Trent Irwin himself, probably going to be a highly owned play or a decently owned play. What was his ownership at? Trent Irwin, 30%. I think that's probably a little bit higher based off him getting a touchdown last week, but 30% maybe about right. Trent Irwin, though, in this build, again, it's just about the way that you use these guys in this build. You could have chalky players. We're getting Tucker, though, who is a lever against a possibly higher-owned Evan McPherson. I like that kind of build more so. Antoine here, Keaton Mitchell captain. All right, Antoine. Don't think that Keaton Mitchell at captain's the best play necessarily, but certainly would be contrarian. Keaton Mitchell, I still wouldn't play the 50K Keaton Mitchell, especially if it's jamming and all the guys, but you do get this one. Keaton Mitchell, Joe Burrow, Joe Mixon. It's the top ROI one. Let's see. Oops. Keaton Mitchell, Evan McPherson, Gus Edwards, Jamar Chase, Lamar, Mark Andrews. This one definitely would get duped, I would think. Bengals D, see, this one might not at 50K. So again, like if you want to know what the threshold is for a 50K lineup that I would consider playing, this one would be closer to it. Obviously, ignoring the part that I'm not crazy about Keaton Mitchell at captain. I think he's worth it as a flex play, but I don't think he's at a captain necessarily. But Keaton Mitchell, Bengals, Joe Burrow, Joe Mixon, getting 2 Joes in there, Lamar Jackson, Zay Flowers. I think the Bengals D part makes it more unique, but you are still getting all kind of name brand guys, so that might not be unique enough. This one, no. You can see them on here, but that's how they all look. Certainly a Keaton Mitchell captain would be a move. Again, more viable to me at flex, especially at that price tag. But if you put him and he does go off, you can really jam in all the studs. But you got to remember then somebody else is thinking that too. And if you jam in all the studs, it's just going to put you in probably some morass of a lot of people. Are the Ravens still more run heavy than most teams? My concern is that if that's still true, how many pass catchers can Lamar bring? Let's see. On the year, the Ravens... -5% pass rate over expectation in the red zone, -0.6% overall. So they're basically, average in the league in terms of pass rate. So I don't think that's he could pass enough. It's still about playing the outcomes people aren't playing. So I wouldn't sweat that much, Steve. I know you're trying to play a more likely outcome, but for Lamar, inherently people are going to play he's going to run. So if you are playing him as a passer, that just sort of pushes you more uniquely anyway. So I just wouldn't sweat it. It's about the uniqueness. See, I think is 3 tight end contrarian or just bad? Seeing Irv, Hudson, Andrews builds, I don't think it's bad. Hudson feels a little thin, maybe. It's just it's a 3-way chop there. The projections are not great for these guys. Stochastic has Irv at 3.4 and Tanner Hudson at 3.2. ETR has Irv at 4.1 and Tanner Hudson at 5.5 in terms of the projection. So not well projected. You can play it. I think it's unique. But the matchup is really tough for tight ends. At least it should be going against the Ravens. -0.33 EPA allowed to tight ends is one of the best marks in the league. So I do expect the Ravens to defend tight end pretty well. That doesn't always mean everything, but it means enough to me that I wouldn't target 2 on the same team trying to get there. Let's see. Let's see. Question here. Any good Boyd captain lineups? We can look at Boyd. Oh, man, this video went long. I thought it was going to be fucking short today, and here I didn't even realize. Best Boyd lineup is this one. And again, please be mindful if you play these lineups straight away later today. The data moves around, the numbers move around because of the total moving throughout the course of a day. So not the best move. You certainly can, it's your money, but just keep that in mind. Tyler Boyd, Evan McPherson, Jamar Chase, Joe Burrow, Justin Tucker, Mark Andrews. That's a top ROI lineup. I think that's probably fairly contrarian, actually. You're playing Chase, but you're not playing Lamar. So, I think this one would be pretty contrarian. 49-4, you're leaving enough money on the table. Wouldn't hate that. This one, Boyd, McPherson, Edwards, Burrow, Lamar, Zay. This one probably gets duped a good amount. I would not play that one as much. Tyler Boyd, McPherson, Chase, Burrow, Mixon, Ravens. Again, no Lamar. You're also fading the pass catchers and the running backs for the Ravens. So that's pretty unique. And it's also a 5-1 build for the Bengals. So that'll be chalky in general, but probably not chalky with only the Ravens as your representation. So there are some unique Tyler Boyd lineups, absolutely. When Hans wanted me to split the pot with Keaton Mitchell captain, I'm sending you a nice tip. Let's fucking go. Oh, boy. I hope that's not the one I'm relying on for a tip because I don't think that's it. But hit the like button, yes. Let's talk about my 3 takeaways to build unique lineups today. Number 1 would be fade 1 of Jamar Chase, Joe Burrow. And this is just to get unique. This is not like a tip, but for some portion of lineups, you should be doing it. Fade 1 at least of Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, Lamar Jackson. They're going to come up in a lot of lineups, come up very easily, whether it be a captain, whether it be at flex. So you could do that, just basically split up in Fantasy Cruncher, or just if you're hand building, just go that's right. I can't play all 3 of these guys in the same build. And if you are playing all 3, you better make sure to get one of the guys here who are, let me go back to the screen real fast. If you're playing all 3 of those guys, you better be getting somebody who is under 10%, at least under 20% in here. So you got to be playing a Justice Hill, a Tanner, an Irv, and a Drew Sample, Travion, likely Duvernay. That's probably about as thin as you can go. But any of these guys, then, if you are going to play the chalkiest, but keep that in mind. Again, Lamar, Burrow, Chase, everybody's playing those 3. So if you're playing those 3 together, find a way to get different somewhere else. Number 2 takeaway to build unique lineups tonight would be, look, I think Mark Andrews is a great play. This is a personal take, obviously, but he's not coming up a ton here with what we're seeing with projections. Obviously, that does mean that he's inherently a less good play, but it's a showdown. It's a single slate. You're playing the volatility of a single game. So I think playing Mark Andrews, to me, he's going to be a part of what I do at captain for sure. He's going to be a part of what I do in flex. I think Mark Andrews is my favorite play of the night. That's why he's on the thumbnail. So hopefully he will come through for me in the spot. I'm wearing the money hat. How could he not? And number 3, to make a unique lineup tonight, what would be the takeaway? I think playing a little more Justin Tucker. I do like Evan McPherson. I like the idea of the Bengals being able to move the ball and then just kind of going, fuck, we have to kick it, I guess, because we just can't get it where we need to go. Because the Ravens D is really going to clamp down hard when they get on their side of the field. But I think that McPherson just comes up a little bit too easily. And Tucker, we know, again, the Ravens have a high total here. They have the higher total, and you are getting direct leverage on the running backs if you play Justin Tucker. So I think playing one of the kickers is a good move. But I think, to me, I just like the kickers a little bit more, but I do think Tucker becoming more of a tournament play as I've done this video. And I think kind of an interesting one to go to just because we know what he is, and he's a way to get leverage on a really highly priced Gus Edwards and Keaton Mitchell, who are unequivocally good plays. Don't get me wrong. I'm going to play some of both. But I think that Justin Tucker is a way to kind of make that work a little better and get leverage on the field. And that's always what it's about. So there we go, guys. That is my takeaways. As always, again, please go check out probably.com. Again, probably.com/subscribe. Use the promo code SPLASH for 50% off on there. And probably, this isn't me shilling. This isn't an ad for something that I'm getting paid for. This is my product that I built with my own money. Legitimately, I've spent tens of thousands of my own dollars to build this product because I wanted to do something for betting because I hate the way the betting industry is going right now. And frankly, if you go on Probably right now, you could probably really beat up on ESPN Bet. ESPN Bet has good promos going, and also Penn had the least efficient odds of any of the sports books out there. I know that because I didn't want to ever sign up for Barstool for all the reasons you might guess. And I would always see Barstool bets as plus EV with our scores because they don't have good lines on there. So I would say use Probably, beat up on ESPN, and it will make money for you. I promise you that. Please go to probably.com/subscribe. Use that promo code SPLASH for 50% off. Follow me at Chris Spags. Follow the show at Splash Play Pod. If you want NBA from me today, 5:30, I'll be there with my old pal Josh Engelman doing the deeper dive on Stochastic. So doing the 2-game slate for NBA today as well. And I'll be gambling on all of it. So you know that I'm going to be going hard. Shout out to the Squirt Squad. New one here, by the way. So if you're a new name, I put you on here. If you're a name that's not paying anymore, I take you off. That's how it goes. So please hit the join button down below, $4.99 a month, and you are getting all the access. You get my data sheet on Saturdays with all the info that I talk about, as well as you get to help me put on the show, which is all I could ask of you. So please do that. But honestly, if you're going to choose between the two, go pay for Probably, but hit the join button too if you want to be part of the Squirt Squad. And shout out to the Squirt Squad. Shout out to all you guys hanging out with me today. Appreciate all you being here. And I will see you guys tomorrow for the same thing we do for the main slate on Fridays. We'll be doing the fantasy football gauntlet, trying to build some unique lineups as well there. So I will see you guys then. Enjoy your days. Good luck. Bye.